And welcome to the coaching tips series number 7. And this time we're looking at leadership and loyalty. And one of the things I find with lots of organizations and companies and teams that leadership and loyalty are really a key issue for them, either in terms of the morale of the team, the strength of the leadership, productivity, efficiency, staff turnover. It all manifests itself through leadership and loyalty. And if you look at the sort of standard training, the received knowledge around leadership, there's a sort of bit of a tick box system that goes with it about vision and all this sort of thing, and generally being nice to people. But actually, I think, or we thought, that to discover the real subject matter around leadership and loyalty of people in teams, we should look somewhere else and not just look at the corporate or business world. So we decided to investigate gangs and cults, and by looking at, not in depth, not getting too close to them, but looking at the patterns of behavior, the types of leadership that they instill in their people, and the loyalty. What are the sort of things we can learn from gangs and cults that we can build into our businesses? And when we looked at it, it was quite surprising because we thought it would be a totally different paradigm than we could use in business. But even if you look at some of the most enlightened teal level organizations, there are still patterns there that can reflect the gangs and the cults and that type of structure. And these are some of the things I think a lot of organizations miss out. Not that they're going to make your company into a gang, but there are some things that, from a leadership perspective, very easy to do, very straightforward, and I just missed out. So we did some research. We looked at gangs and cults and other organizations and try to distill down some of the key elements that make them so strong, whether you like them or not, or they're positive or negative forces. But unfortunately, gangs and cults do have effective leadership and a very loyal following. So what do they do that we can learn? So we broke it down into 6 lessons that we can learn from gangs and cults that perhaps we can transfer into business. And the first one, almost obvious to a certain extent, was charismatic leadership. That there's always a person at the center of the organization with the idea, with the values, with the vision, with the whole context of the gang or the group or the cult. And they don't particularly get that close to the people within the gang or the cult. They're seen as a figurehead. They're slightly remote to a certain extent. They're slightly unapproachable, but there's a charismatic leader. And whether you like them or not, there's lots of examples around these type of people that are very effective, very charismatic. And of course, in business, we have to have high standards of values and ethics as well that people in gangs and maybe some cults don't have to have. But there is this person at the center that is even slightly quirky, slightly not normal, if you like, or strange, or slightly sociopathic to a certain extent. And I guess that can show up in business as well. And it has been shown that a lot of, not a lot, I rephrase that, a percentage of CEOs and leaders are slightly sociopathic to a certain extent, or at least they're odd in a positive way, and that's a good thing. So we need people who are charismatic, clarity of vision, high standards, and maybe even slightly quirky as well. There's a slight strangeness to them in a positive way. So number one, charismatic leadership. What we also found was that within the organization, within the gang or the cult, high levels of status and reward and recognition. And so this is a picture of somebody in the Boy Scouts movement or the Scouts movement. I'll call him Kevin. I've no idea what his name is. I don't think Kevin gets out much. He hasn't got a girlfriend, I don't think, Kevin. But look at the badges he's got. So he's qualified for everything. But every level, every layer of qualification or training or experience is rewarded with a badge. And when there's so many of them, it means that the journey within the group or the gang or the organization is almost unlimited. And that's something organizations can learn from. Some of the franchisee or franchisor organizations do this in terms of stars on the arm and certification, this type of thing. And again, in martial arts, it's well known where you grade and graduate through the levels of whichever martial art it is. And typically you start with a white belt, which just holds your gi in place, and then you end up with the black belt. And even when you've done the black belt, you can keep on going and have dans applied to it, different levels or higher levels of black belts. So this status and reward within an organization, but visible recognition of it. It could be badges, it could be levels, it could be stars, it could be a sign on the desk or something like that. But very clear, it gives somebody something to shoot for. I mean, people see somebody with, when they see young Kelly wandering around, he clearly needs some help, bless him, but he's clearly a senior person in that organization. He's got the credibility and status. And when you see somebody wearing the black belt in the martial arts academy, you instantly recognize they've worked hard to get there. They have that level of status and reward, and it's something that has to be achieved, not given. It has to be achieved and worked for, and regularly with these, with the belt, for example, or even with the badge in the scout movement, there has to be some sort of test or qualification in order for you to wear the badge. So status and reward within organizations and gangs and cults are very, very important. For number three, we found initiation ceremonies, and this year we all know the stories, perhaps of the Masons and the dagger to the heart and that type of thing. But when people join a gang or a cult, there is some sort of ceremony. It might be called a training event, for example, or something like that. But there's something they go through where they are visibly in front of people, being brought into the organization with a commitment or with some level of ritual that goes with it. So some initiation ceremony. And it doesn't have to, I'm not suggesting you have a ceremony for all your new starters in the company particularly, but something they have to do to qualify to be there. That's public, that's within the organization, that's seen in front of the team, that they have that level of public commitment. Public commitment to the team, to the group, the gang, the cult, really, really important. And it sets the scene. I mean, it could be even a training program. And it doesn't mean that that's initiation, but if they go on an induction program, for example, and a group of them, new inductees, that can serve as a type of ceremonial entrance to the organization. And sometimes it's an opportunity missed as well to let people know what the vision, mission, rules of the game, and culture of the organization is, and how it operates, and how they have to behave when they get there. And that's part of the initiation ceremony. And then number four, badges and patches. Now, this is the classic SAS, Special Air Service, Who Dares Wins badge, and you have to work real hard to get this. I think there's only, I think, 5, maybe 10% of people who apply or go through training to get that patch, that badge, actually qualify for it. So it goes a little bit back to the status and reward, but these badges are almost a single badge of recognition that I am part of this organization. I wear it with pride. I've earned it, and it's something that is respected. And in some organizations, they're revered. Now, I'm not suggesting the SAS is a gang or a cult, but everybody knows this badge, and they're very proud of it, and rightly so, proud of it. They defend it, and it's part of their identity. Now, this may be in an organization, just a badge on a polo shirt or something like that, but it is very powerful, some visual representation that they belong. They've earned the right to be part of the organization, and providing the organization's got credibility, it'll maintain that level of loyalty for them as well. Other organisations, I mean, there's lots of them out there, but Man United, the football club, now both the players and the fans sort of rally around the badge or the patch. It's recognised the world over. I remember doing a road trip in Bali, in the middle of the jungle on a motorbike, and I stopped to have a coffee or a sweet tea in a little roadside cafe. And when they knew I was from the UK, they showed me a flag they had in the back of this little tin shack, and it was the Manchester United flag. And they all knew about it. And they asked me if I knew any of the players, which, of course, I told them I did. And I didn't have to pay for the tea. But there you go, separate story. So badges and patches that are recognised as bringing people together, that people respect, they like, and they feel proud to be part of as well. And it's not just a logo and a brand, it means much more. So when you're looking at branding your business or having these images in the business, they have to be earned, they have to be significant, and people have to buy into them. But people will defend their badge, they will defend their patch. And I know one of my friends in the UK, or colleagues in the UK, he's a biker, and they have a group, and they ride around on their bikes, as bikers do. And on the back of his jacket, they put some patches on the back of the jacket, which had a passing resemblance to the Hells Angels patches in terms of their shape and structure and colour. And anyway, they they were approached by a member of one of the real Hells Angels chapters, and it was just suggested to them that they maybe should reconsider the design of their patches and take them off, and they wouldn't hear anything else. And I think that was very solid advice to take, so they took it off. So, but these patches are revered. It's strong loyalty to them. And this is something that organizations can use as well to get people to buy in, to have that respect for the organization and what the organization is all about. Number five, rituals, models, and artifacts. When we looked at the gangs and cults, and every one of them had rituals, whether it's patterns of behavior or phrases or sayings or types of clothing, or when they meet each other, they say certain words or certain things, or when they go to a conference, there is a piece of music that will play, or there's certain things are done, whether it's an exercise or the hands up or a group hug or something. There's something they do whenever they are together as a greeting or as part of their work together that becomes a ritual. And what it means is that you can recognize other people from within your organization or the team or the gang or the cult simply by the way they behave and the rituals that they use, the models and the artifacts, all of it, the badges, the buttons, the silks, everything that goes with it. But the rituals are very, very powerful because that binds people into the team. And this could simply be a ritual in the business, could be regularity of meetings. It could be the way the meeting is run. It could be something that happens on a regular basis that only happens in that organization, that fits, that people know that when they do that or they experience it or they hear that music or they meet these people, they know they're part of the gang. They're in a safe place, and that binds people together. Again, one of the classic ones that everybody seems to be aware of is probably the worst kept secret in the world, is the secret Masonic handshake. And it's not. I don't think it's not as described on the slide there. But these are the sort of things that bind people together. It's like a trigger point for people to recognize other people that are like them. We like being around people that we are like. And because we're social creatures, we like being around similarity, we respect that sort of similarity. So rituals, models, artifacts, very, very powerful. And the final one, the sixth one, maybe there are probably more, but we wanted to distill it down to six key ones for takeaway, was accountability and consequence. And we found that accountability and consequence was never or rarely meted out by the leader or even the senior team, but within the organization, within the gang, within the cult, there are enforcers. Somebody steps out of line, they don't follow the pattern, they don't follow the rules, they don't follow the mindset of the group, the gang, or the cult. They're put to step back in line. They're having forces out there. In politics, you'll hear all about it with the Brexit negotiations. They have the whip's office, and the whips have to go around and literally almost whip the MPs into shape and get them to follow the line, the party line. And if they have the whip taken away from them, then they can't participate. So enforcement, now probably in business we wouldn't call it perhaps enforcement, but certainly accountability and consequence, not just for results and KPIs and numbers and everything like that, but accountability to the patterns of behavior, the rules and standards, the rituals. And if people fall outside of that accepted pattern, they're brought back into line, because if people aren't performing as part of the group, the gang or the cult, it's a weakness. And therefore the gang and the cult don't want that. So there's enforcement. People are loyal to the cause, loyal to the leader, and they will bring people back in line and enforce the regulations. Otherwise, the organization, the gang or the cult can tend to fragment. So this is not really, hopefully you're not thinking to go and make your company into a gang or a cult, but when we looked at it, there are some key drivers there that perhaps can be taken away that we can use in business, not to become a gang or a cult, but to generate some loyalty, some buy-in, and something unique about an organization where people can individually recognize a part of a group and then have loyalty to that group. It starts with charismatic leadership and all the way through, the badges, the patches, the rituals, the sayings, the phrases, it all counts. Now that's something that it tends to be, at least in my experience, tends to be missed out on lots of to a standard leadership type trainings and leadership type materials. There's great material out there on leadership, absolutely. And this is not to displace that, but perhaps another layer, something to consider. How do you get people to buy in? How do you get people to stay with you and be loyal? And it's really interesting, well, as almost a final point, that when we look at gangs and cults, the people they're loyal, they have great cause, great vision, and they don't get paid. They're not paid to be there. They buy into the cause. And a lot of organizations obviously pay people to be there. And maybe there's a question would be, well, how much of a leader, a great leader would you have to be to get people to follow you without paying them? Now, that's not suggesting you're going to pay your people, but as a mindset, we maybe compensate for poor leadership with high salaries. So what could you do in terms of building the leadership style within an organization? Clarity of mission, vision, rules, all the things that go with it, and these structures here, such that you didn't have to just pay crazy salaries. People wanted to be there because they valued the vision. They wanted to be there because they bought into it, because they trusted and liked the organization. And again, I'm not suggesting you make it into a salary-free cult in your company, but there is a question there, I think, about the quality of leadership and the type of values and vision and buy-in that we can get from people. So I hope that's been of interest. You can check out on the YouTube channel for more of the coaching tips. There'll be more to come. In the meantime, I hope that was helpful. Please subscribe, comment below if you liked it. If you didn't like it, please, well, don't comment below. But anyway, my email address is on the slide there. Any thoughts and comments, please drop me a note. And there'll be more coaching tips in the series to come. Thanks for that, and bye for now.